I'm just going to start talking. And if somebody walks in and stops me, you're on my side, okay? All right. I'm Ryan Smith. We start there. It's nice to meet you. I am the family minister of East Ridge Church of Christ in Rockwall, so I'm just about 40 minutes east of you guys. My world is a little bit weird in that I started my ministry career as a private practice mental health practitioner. So I was a marriage and family therapist. My education background-wise, my PhD is from Texas A&M Commerce. My master's is from A&M Commerce. I was in a clinical setting. In fact, my private practice was like 10 minutes up the road from here. So I had a clinical practice here where I served as a marriage and family therapist. We lived in Rockwall. I attended church in Rockwall at East Ridge, and we kind of had a situation a couple years ago, like a lot of churches had, where we had some marriages that kind of fell apart and nobody knew they were in trouble. So I was having a conversation with our elders about maybe tending to those marriages, and one thing led to another, and I started working there somehow. Still not totally sure how it happened, but I've been there 5 years. But my job is weird. It's weird for the ministry world because my job is to still do clinical work. We do marriage and family therapy. We do clinical stuff for people of all ages. What I'm very, very proud of, and this is something just to log away, we do mental health interventions across the age spectrum. Nobody pays a dime for what we do. And all of my clinicians are fully licensed and clinical. So note to self, probably don't raise your hand. If you need that kind of help, maybe we'll just keep that between us. But you are welcome to talk to me afterwards, and I can put you in touch with some of our people. But I say all that because that's how I got here. How I got here was I'm in ministry, but I also have a clinical background as a marriage and family counselor. The big reason, though, that I think we're having this conversation is because all of my clinical work, all of my research focus, the topic of my dissertation was the impact of technology on you. Specifically, the impact of technology and social media on marriage. Spoiler alert, it wasn't great. Believe it or not, social media is having a negative impact on your lives. Right? That's it, end of session. Go home. You've learned something. So turns out that phones we put in our pocket that have our undivided attention 24 hours a day aren't really helping us out. So some of that is going to come into our conversation today, but I wanted to give you just a little bit of background as to where some of the information we're going to look at today is coming from. Now, I also want to point out that this is not a sermon, which means if you have comments or questions, feel free to raise your hand or throw them out as you feel comfortable. If they're insults, hurl them. That's the better way to do it. You don't want to raise your hand for an insult. You want to hurl it and then see if anybody agrees with you. But we want today to get into a very difficult conversation. So the purpose is creating a culture of quiet in our homes, which is a weird topic because we are in the noisiest time in history. And so we have a very hard job ahead of us as parents. Let me see, hands. You have kids under the age of 10. Okay, so like a lot of you. Over the age of 10. So also a lot of you. Nope, 10-year-olds don't count. I didn't think about the fact that I was leaving 10-year-olds out. I'm going to leave them. 10, that's a weird, you don't have to do anything. At 10, ignore them for a year. At 11, you need to get back on the pony. That year is going to be rough. All right. So, and I just randomly picked 10 because we got little kids. Okay, so the bottom line is most of you have little kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. Some of you have kids who are a little older than that. Everything we're going to talk about today is going to fit all of those demographics because we're not talking about just your kids. We're talking about your families, your family units, and your job as parents. So that is what we're going to do today. Culture of quiet. That's the goal. The goal is to help you create a culture of quiet in your home. Now, to do that, we need to figure out what quiet means. Okay, so as you hear me say, I want you to create a culture of quiet in your home. What does that mean to you? What do you want to do? What do you want quiet to look like in your home? No chaos. Okay, so that's what you don't want. I love it. No chaos. You feel like there's a lot of chaos in our homes. I'm not going to ask for your homes. I almost went family counselor. Tell me more. Ignore these people. Tell me what's going on in your house. Less chaos. Got it. What else? What do you want? Yeah.
I don't always want to constantly have to feel the need to entertain my child. I'm okay with being bored.
So let's talk. You don't have to do that, and you shouldn't. So here's there's some stuff we're gonna talk about in a minute that's gonna address this. But since you bring it up, we are the first generation of parents in history with that expectation. Who you think to yourselves, if they have 2 minutes where I haven't directed their activity, they're not going to get into college. And if I have 3 minutes where I'm not directing their activity, they're all going to be homicidal serial killers. They're not. They can play by themselves. And in fact, if you have little kids, you know one of the best things you can do for your little kids in order to create a culture of quiet in your home is you can stick them in the playroom, just kind of push them, nudge them in the playroom or in the area where the toys are safe. I would put away the Gitsus. I would put away the things where they can hurt each other, but you put them in a room with toys, specifically with limited options of toys, where they don't have unlimited toys, but maybe half the toys they normally have access to, and then leave them alone for an hour. You want a litmus test as to how well your kids are doing culture of quiet? We're like 20 minutes in, by the way. We're way down the road, but you brought it up, so I'm blaming you. So you want a litmus test for whether or not my home is a culture of quiet. How long can your children play without needing you to intervene, to guide the play, to direct the play? If you have kids under the age of 10, if the answer to that question is they can't do a half hour, okay, we got some stuff to talk about today. They should be able to do that. Kids at 6, 7, 8 years old shouldn't need you to direct their play. And if you are, that's a you problem, not a them problem. It's not their job to convince you to leave them alone. It is your job to recognize that that's good for their growth. You remember action figures? I bought my kids action figures. It was like, have fun, kids. They don't know what to do with them because they have digital everything. So I was like, it's a Batman. You like, you do the thing, the thing. And he looked at me like I was crazy. It was Imaginext. I remember it vividly. He looked at me like I was a crazy person. He was like, you got to pretend that Batman is Batman. And then this is the thing that happened. The Joker is a whole big backstory. It took a long time. The idea, though, that our culture we're not cultivating, because of the digital world we live in, we're not cultivating imagination play. Holy cow, they should have to do it. Your kids should be told to go outside and play if they're not doing it regularly. But if they're not told, they won't. You're the first generation of parents in history where that has been true. You were the first generation of parents to ever have to tell your kids to go outside and play. Congratulations. All right, so what else? I'm blaming you for that. What else? What else do you want? Yeah.
No drama.
No drama. Next comment. We're going to get to some of that. What do you got?
If my 3-year-old could just stop screaming for a short period of time, that would be amazing.
Okay, quick question, and then don't answer it out loud. What happens when she? What happens when he screams? And I say that because every kid on earth has 2 goals, attention and power. They will get those 2 things in whatever way is effective. And if we do not give them attention or power when they scream, their screaming is useless. And they will eventually figure that out. But it's a process.
Yeah.
Meaning we have to accept the fact that screaming is okay, and I have to ignore it the overwhelming majority of the time so that they stop using it, but it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's a process. It's a learning process. We have to be more patient with the growth. We're very impatient with them. We give them about 3 seconds to do what we want or to get where, and then, okay, I'm going to try this. And then, I have ADHD, so deal with me for a second. The idea when it comes to discipline, I have a lot of thoughts with how we discipline kids in our culture. So I ended up doing a lot of changes with parents about disciplinary interventions, right? The thing I tell them is, this is going to make it worse for a while. You have to fight through that. The reason it's worse is because they don't like it, and they're trying to get you to change it. And so they're going to make it worse, and you have to fight through that because you know it's the right thing. Okay, good. What else? What else do you want quiet to look like in the back? Time without them.
Yeah. Like going to bed when I don't feel like just falling over in bed too. Like
Yeah.
that time when they're not in my face.
Having that time where they're not in your face does not make you a bad mother, does not make any of us bad parents, that we need that time. And you need that time, the 2 of you need that time where there aren't kids in your face. Good. What else? Fighting? What, your kids fight? Wait a minute. Hold on. Mine have never done that, so I can't really help with this conversation. It's probably just your kids. You ever? I don't like to be the one to tell you that. Okay, no fighting. No, I got it. We have so much to talk about. I need to get into it. I saw more hands, but I need to get into it because we have a lot of ground to cover that I think is going to, in ways, approach everything that we're discussing right now. So here's the definition I'm going to give you. Okay, so I just asked you what quiet means in your house. Here's the definition I'm going to give you. I want to use a biblical definition. The definition I'm going to give you is the word sekhat. It's a Hebrew word that appears in the Bible 41 times. And this word is powerful. This word is beautiful. This word encompasses what I want for your home. Okay? Here's what this word means. To be at rest. To be at peace. To keep silent. See, here's the thing. Creating quiet in your home is not hard. You want a house that isn't noisy? Carry a big enough stick, anyone will comply. So there you go. If you're mean enough, threatening enough, if you're damaging enough to the people in your home, you can get compliance. Compliance is not, they're little. What are you going to do? They're itty bitty. They can't fight back. So as long as you are aggressive and mean and hostile enough, you can get compliance. Okay, so session over. You guys go home. We don't want compliance. That's not the kind of quiet we want. We don't want quiet that we have to force. We want this. We want at rest, at peace. We want this kind of quiet that comes from a peaceful home, not just a silent home. Very, very commonly, noisy homes are sekhat homes. Okay, what I mean by that is noisy homes that are filled with the noise of laughter and conversation and dialogue and people being goofy. That's a quiet home in this definition. So I don't want to confuse the word. We're not trying to create compliant homes where it's silent all the time. Okay, that sounds awful for everybody, and that's not what we want. What we want is this kind of quiet. My favorite use of the word sekhat in the Bible comes in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. There's this really cool story of King Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat is, in this one chapter, gives this really powerful picture of what leadership looks like, what I think it should look like in our homes, and here's the short version. He's the king, and he gets word that these two forces are invading his kingdom, and he can't defeat those two forces. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. So what does he do? He kind of freaks out, as anybody would in that situation. He confesses that he doesn't know what to do. He prays, and he asks all of the people in his tribe to pray. Okay, so for us as parents, you feel overwhelmed by the culture around you? You feel terrified that your kids have access through their phones to some crazy version of society that you and I don't recognize? I understand that. It can feel overwhelming at times. Jehoshaphat felt overwhelmed. These two kingdoms invading his kingdom, or these two armies invading his kingdom. He prays, and then he starts worshiping before the prayer has been answered. He starts worshiping, and it's this really amazing picture of what we're supposed to do in moments of chaos. And then he watches as God wins the day. God defeats these two armies that he can't defeat on his own. And then the end of that story is this. So the realm of Jehoshaphat was quiet, was sekhat, for his God gave him rest all around. That's my prayer for your house. Okay, you can take Jehoshaphat's name out and put your name in. So the realm of me was at rest because God had given me peace all around. That's what we're shooting for. We want the kind of peace that's more than just a lack of noise. We want a peace that is a home of happiness and connection. And today we're going to talk really intentionally about how we get there. I'm going to give you two platforms for everything that we are about to explore. Okay, they're a little uncomfortable, but I say things directly for a reason. Here are the two platforms. Number one, you are the adults. The responsibility is yours. We are, and I'm speaking as a marriage counselor, so I don't know your house. I don't know what it looks like in your home. I don't know what it looks like for you personally. But culturally speaking, as a generation of parents, we seem to be very afraid of the reactions of our children. They're going to scream or yell. They're going to panic. They're going to say, and we're very aware of that in ways that our parents weren't. And we worry about that in ways that our parents didn't. In addition to that, you said to your parents all the time, well, all my friends are doing it, and they laughed at you. But it works on you because they see your kids at, well, I know I'm in fourth grade, but my friends have phones. And you're like, well, we don't want them to be left out. That's the thing. They just said all my friends are doing it. And you said, okay, deal. Okay, we are struggling as a parent, as a generation of parents. I'm right about that.
Yes.
I'm right about that. That we give our kids access to violent video games. We give our kids access to online gaming where they have headphones, where other children are saying horrible things. And you know how I know that? Because I play video games. And I've heard what these little monsters say on those headphones. It's profane. I have said more than once in my life, put your mother on the phone. Because I'm on. I only did it once or twice. I don't actually do online gaming in the way that I'm describing it, but I did it once. The game was Red Dead Redemption, and some of you know what I'm talking about, and it was on the Xbox 360. Some of you guys are like, yeah, that was a good one. That's my only foray into online gaming. And holy cow, the language on those children. They were little bitty. And the words they were using were horrifying to my ears. All right, I say that because how many of your kids, please don't raise your hand, how many of your kids played Fortnite with headphones where they could talk to their friends? What do you think was being said? You think they were saying wholesome, were they praying for each other? No. No. They were saying terrible things because that's what kids do in an unsupervised digital environment. Okay, there's no consequences. There's no real people involved. Okay, so I'm ranting already. We are the adults. It is our job to recognize. I didn't want my kids to be left out of Fortnite either. All the kids know the stupid dances. And so I realized the Fortnite craze has died down a bit. So you know what our job was? Okay, I'm going to do both. I'm not exposing my kid to the world of Fortnite because he's 9. He does not need to have that kind of interaction with people. But I do want him to not be left out when everybody's talking about it. So the goal was, okay, you can play Fortnite by yourself on a device that's not connected, and you can play in a world where you're not connected. Fortnite's boring when you're playing by yourself, but you know all the stuff. And so that was the compromise, was you can play so you know all the dumb little dances and stuff, but you're not talking to people and connecting to people. And if the response I got from my kids was, oh, but they're all on there. I understand, sweetie, but I don't care what their parents are doing. It is up to me as a parent to protect you as a kid. I don't make anybody else's choices for them. So I'm telling you this, you're the adults. The responsibility for your kids is yours. Number 2, everything we're going to talk about today over the course of the next few minutes has to be framed as a family issue, not a kid issue. The reason I say that is if you go home today, I'm going to give you something called a family tech plan here in a minute. It's going to change the way you do technology in your home. You walk in the door today, you boot in the door. I heard things. We're going organic. I got all the devices in a bucket. They're all going in the pond. And candles, only candles. You go in today and make it seem like you heard something that turned you into a crazy cult member. Your children are going to see through it. And they're going to call you hypocrites. You know why? Okay, I don't know if you have teenagers, but I counsel a lot of kids, and I've counseled a lot of teenagers. You know what their biggest complaint is about you? You're on your phone too much. Yep. You don't think that that's going to be their observation, but it is. You know what I've heard from young children in therapy sessions? I've heard, we were having a good time until she took my picture at dinner, and then she posted it, and she spent the rest of the dinner attending to the post. She didn't use the word attending. But I remember the kid saying, she spent the rest of the dinner kind of talking to people who were on her phone, so I just started looking around the restaurant. Because you took a picture of me and my daughter at dinner, and then I sent that picture, and then she's gone. Because all of the people who were responding, oh, sweet, so much fun, daddy-daughter night, mommy-daughter night. Well, yeah, but she's still sitting there, and you're now in your phone. Okay, so if you believe that all of the world, the problems that we're dealing with from this world are all kid problems, you're not starting in the right place. So everything we're going to talk about today, you have to remember these 2 things, that they are all family issues and that you are the adult. So let's get into what do we do about it. The first step we want to take is we want to confront the noise. Largely because of my clinical work, also largely because I'm a human with eyes and ears. I will tell you that the overwhelming majority of the noise in our culture is coming either directly or indirectly as a result of our kind of hyper-saturized technology. Okay? We are saturated technology. We have an overwhelming amount of digital input. And that's problematic on a lot of levels. So we're going to talk for the next few minutes really directly about the technology in our homes. But before we do, I want you to know something. This verse needs to be in your mind. It needs to be in your heart. It needs to be in a frame on the wall of your house. It needs to be in your kid's bedroom, because anytime You change the rules for them. Anytime you say, hey, our tech has kind of gotten out of control, you've been on your device a lot more lately, or I saw some things on your phone, or I saw some things on your iPad, I want you to remember that this is our job. Above all else, guard your heart. Guard your heart. Everything you do flows from it. What does guard your heart mean? It means to be cautious with what comes into it. It means not being open to whatever message exists in the world to just dissect or digest it. It means guarding your ears and your eyes and your input to a large degree. Here's the problem. My 9-year-old and my 6-year-old can't do this by themselves. They need me to do this for them for a while. When they're 19 and 16, they still can't do it by themselves. Now, a lot more of it is their responsibility at 19 and 16. But I still have a hand. I still have a voice. It is my job to continue to connect with them. All right, so we want to have this anytime we change the rules. Guard your heart. I say that to my boys all the time. Guard your heart. Guard your heart, guard your heart. And I want them to know what that means, and I want that to be a part of your vocabulary as well. All right, so let's talk about why we're going to guard our hearts. That's my youngest. I'm trying to keep him small for as long as possible. He's my little cowboy. So let's talk. I'm going to scare you to death for a minute, okay? But stay with me. There's good news at the end of this. Let's talk about the digital infiltration in your house. There's some statistics, and I believe there's a section for this in your little notebook. Some statistics I want to put in front of you. For every hour per day that a preschool-age child engages in digital stimulation, it is correlated to a 10% increase in the likelihood somebody like myself is one day going to diagnose your kid with some form of attention deficit disorder. Every hour per day, your kid engages in digital stimulation, it goes up 10%. Some of you are thinking, what's 110%? Is that possible? I got it. The goal that I need you to see in this is, first of all, anybody have a guess as to what age kids begin exposure to daily screens? 2? Who said? 6 months? You're being too generous. 4 months. The average age at which children are exposed to daily screens is 4 months old, because they're in the living room, the TV's on, or they're with mom and her phone while she's breastfeeding, or she's got her phone, which has robbed so many women of a very important moment in the development of their children and in their personal development. By the way, women love it when I talk about mothering. They do. They love it when I talk about the experience of being a woman. Ladies, sit tight. Let me talk for just a minute. I'm kidding. I don't want to be run out of here. All right. So I just think about that anytime I start talking about things like breastfeeding. People are like, really? Yes. Stats. I don't know what you're talking about. All right. So this is the negative part. The negative part is that our kids' attention is being wrecked by our technology. Here's the positive part. For every hour of cognitive stimulation. Now, what is cognitive stimulation? Cognitive stimulation is Legos. It's playing in the dirt. It's Nerf guns. It's pillow forts. Cognitive stimulation is what you probably grew up doing. Some of you may have been young enough to grow up with technology, but most of you probably had. Am I dating people in here? Like, some of you probably had some. Other of you old people like me, you probably played with the Batman figurines like I did. Okay, cognitive stimulation is all of that real world stuff, right? Puzzles and games and coloring books. That's all cognitive stimulation. For every hour per day that a kid engages in that kind of activity, 30% decrease in that same likelihood. Okay, what does that mean? I don't need you to go home and burn all of your devices. My kids have devices. They have consoles. They have Xboxes and like the things that we've got those in our house. But we limit the time. We're very cautious as to what they bring into their headspace. I have an entire presentation on how to identify the difference between dangerous tech and not dangerous tech. We're not going to get into the details of that because I've only got 20 minutes. But I do want you to know that my kids do have devices, but they also have no choice but to go outside and play. They have no choice but to go in the backyard and chase the goats. We live on a farm. Irony, all of my research is in technology. I live on a farm that doesn't have internet access. That wasn't an accident. But they have to go outside and play. They're allowed console gaming, not connected console gaming, because they're 9 and 6, so their console is not connected to the internet. Their iPads, I'm getting into the tech conversation. The bottom line is I don't need you to throw all of your tech away. What I do need you to do is recognize you are the first generation of parents in history who have to tell your kids to go outside and play, and you should do it. You should also make them go to the playroom and play by themselves without you holding their hand. They should put together puzzles and get angry and frustrated when they can't do it and you don't help them. They should have a project they're working on. They should have a Lego tower they're trying to build and watch it fall over and not be able to get it right. I know it breaks your heart to see them frustrated. That is good frustration. That is growing frustration. That is patient frustration. For every hour per day the kid does that, we're 30% deep. So you can play some games? Cool, no problem. You can play some Minecraft. My kid loves Minecraft. You can play some Minecraft. You can play some Disney Infinity. They really like that too. Lego City Undercover. I almost beat that game with my oldest, and then I left for a conference and came back and he beat it without me. I've never been angrier. So the idea, though, is that we also have to spend time doing that cognitive stuff. All right, so let's get into some more stuff. That's my oldest and my youngest. Anytime I can work them into a presentation, I'm gonna. So these are studies. You can copy these. I think they're in your book somewhere. Here's the short version of what's on the slide in front of you. Social media has detrimental impacts on kids as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. Kids who connect through Snapchat or through Instagram or through TikTok. I know that what they're doing are little dances and they're cute. But this stuff applies to 9-year-olds looking at TikTok. It makes them feel worse about themselves. It makes them feel worse about the world. I understand that is a very weird jump. The reason for that is because we're conditioning kids to only exist in competition with the rest of the world. We're conditioning kids, I can only have fun if everyone sees it, and if everyone likes it, and if it's what everybody else is doing. Do you hear the message you're giving them? You don't do it on purpose. It's a cute TikTok. We're doing it together. I got it, but the message you're giving them is way deeper than just a cute dance. The message is we're really going to engage with this culture. We're going to go all in with this culture. And in addition to that, you only exist in relation to other people around you who are doing the same thing you're doing, and you compare each other. There's no way to exist in social media without that happening. I'm only going to give this one stat. My dissertation involved a lot of families. The overwhelming, I'm going to speak to women for 1 second. The overwhelming majority of the women in my study, in fact, it was upwards of 90% of the women in my study, said 2 things. They said, number one, they look through their Facebook feed because it relaxes them, but while they're doing it, they inadvertently end up feeling worse about their lives, about their marriages, and about their families. And then the second thing they said was, but I know it's all fake. You would think that knowledge of the second thing makes the first thing not happen, but it didn't happen. So if you think like, well, yeah, but I know it's fake. According to the study I did, doesn't matter. You're still feeling bad. All right, the last thing I want to point out is this. Participants, and this was a study done in over the span of tens of thousands of people. The bullet point 3, here's what bullet point 3 says. Bullet point 3 says, if you have a daily active social media account, which means you look at it, you scroll through it, and you engage with it once a day, right, which is most people, by the way. If you have an active social media account, you are 40% less likely when you struggle to go to a human being. Wives, you are 40% less likely to tell your husband when you're struggling. You'll probably go to a mom blog, you'll go to Instagram, you'll go to text messages, you'll go to Facebook groups. Dads, when you struggle, you'll go to Twitter and get mad at somebody politically. Or you somebody. I'm not going to say what I just saw because you just ratted him out. So you'll go to social media and you'll get mad at somebody's politics. Or you'll go to somebody's social media and you'll get mad at sports teams. You'll get mad at people who don't see the world the same way that you do. You know what you're not doing? You're not talking to the human beings who God put in your life. And God put in your house. And that's what we want to do more of. All right, so there's a biological reason for all of this. The gas pedal is something called dopamine. Dopamine is driving all of our behavior. Dopamine is what drives us towards everything that we want. Okay? If you have ever wanted something and then pursued it, you had something called a dopaminergic experience inside your brain. Okay, now there's a whole long biological explanation as to what I just said, but I am just condensing a 30-minute part of my presentation down to about 3, so stay with me. In your brain, dopamine drives all of our behavior. Okay, that's a God-designed thing. That's not a bad thing. In fact, I can point, biologically speaking, to how God's design for dopamine on the adolescent brain is the primary driver to adolescent kids going out and starting a life. It's a good, wonderful, beautiful thing that we have somehow managed to corrupt, as though we have a pattern of doing that. So here's how we corrupted it. Our phones, the technology in our lives, physically cannot keep up with the dopaminergic experience. I'm sorry, our real world relationships cannot keep up with the dopaminergic experience that's found within our phones. I'm going to give you an example of an easy to understand analogy for how this works. In a world with no technology, in a world where you're not saturating yourself with social media, your dopamine level, which is the thing that kind of makes you happy, makes you feel like you had an exciting day, a good day, your dopamine level would probably be hovering around like a 3 or 4. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, your just resting dopamine rate would be like a 3 or 4. And then you walk in the door and you see your spouse, and it shoots up to a 7, because that's awesome, because I'm happy to see her. Today is a good day now. I've had my 3 or 4, well, life's fine, I mean, it's not bad. I'm just kind of living my normal existence. The world around me is not super exciting. It doesn't move super fast. It's cognitive. It's meant to be kind of a peaceful place. And then I walk in the door and my dopamine shoots to a 7 because my spouse is there and my kids are there. It's wonderful and exciting. Your phone takes your brain to a constant humming 8. Okay? So it's going. If you have ever, and I don't need a show of hands, if you have ever pulled out your phone for no reason that you can think of, you didn't even think about doing it, you didn't check a message, you didn't check a notification, you just kind of, you may be struggling with an addiction. And the reason I say that is dopamine is what drove that behavior. Subconsciously, your brain said, I want a dopamine fix. I know where to get it. Boom. And that's an addiction. So I realize I'm called a bit of an alarmist sometimes when I say this, but I believe the overwhelming majority of our culture, biologically speaking, has a digital addiction. And that's damaging, because here's why. Your kids and your spouse can't keep up with the excitement that's in your phone. And here's why that's a problem. I have a story of a couple years ago working with a mom who said to me at one point in a counseling session, I feel like a terrible mother. My response was, tell me why. Because who knows, maybe she is. Maybe we need to identify. That was a joke. You people are... Yeah, you should. Maybe she was. You think about that? If she was, different conversation. All right. It's fine. I was kidding. So, but I did. I asked, why do you feel like a terrible mother? And her answer was one that I think you can all relate to. Her answer was, my kids wanted to go outside and they wanted to build this thing out of sticks and rocks or whatever, and it bored me. I went out and I tried, and I couldn't do it, and so I went back inside because it was boring. Okay, well, in the confines of a private counseling session that then gets relayed to thousands of people over the years, that's a safe place. I have her permission to tell the story as long as I don't use her name. But here's the thing. So I said, okay, tell me what's happening in that moment. And she said, I just feel bored. I said, okay, then what? I went inside. I said, okay, then what? I sat down. What are you asking? I said, what did you do instead? You did something instead. She said, well, Facebook. I said, that's what happened. I said, so let's try something. Instead of focusing on trying to make your kids more interesting, I mean, you could glue stuff to them and give them Red Bull. They'd be more interesting. You know what I mean? We could do that. We could make that our goal. I'll teach them a foreign language that you then have to decipher. Like, that would be fun. But instead of that, why don't we let's pare down your phone usage for a while. Stay away from your phone, and then just tell me what happens to your kids. So she decided that, and she was going to use the pathway I'm about to show you. She scaled down her tech usage. You know what's amazing? Her kids got way more entertaining, and her spouse got way funnier. He used to be funny, and then her phone got in the way. Now he's not funny anymore. They got funny again, and the kids got more interesting. And she was able to read books and not just blogs, and was able to watch a 30-minute show, which is a foreign concept to most people. So here's why I tell you that story. In a very biologically real way, our cell phones, our technology makes us less happy with the world that isn't our cell phones. That's what it's designed to do. What is the number one goal of everything on your phone and in your phone? They all have the same goal. Your eyes, your engagement. That's all they want. They don't care what your political leanings are, despite the fact that we feel they do. They don't care. They just want your engagement. And the best way to get your engagement is to give you stuff that makes you mad, because that triggers that dopamine. 2 ways to trigger a dopaminergic response. The 2 best ways: novel activities and anger. Which one of those 2 do you think is easier? There you go. That's why your phone makes you mad so often. Do yourself a little test. Think as you're getting off your device for however long you've been mindlessly scrolling, which, by the way, can be fine. I do it sometimes too. But ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy do you feel? And then start paying attention to how happy you felt before you pulled it out. And tell me if you notice it. I could keep going, but wow, I'm running way behind. So let's talk about how do we hit the reset button. You want the miracle cure for your family? Here we go. Set a target date 6 weeks from right now where you are going to have a tech-free weekend. So 6 weeks from now, we're going candlesticks and like board games. We're churning butter in 6 weeks. Like that is how horse and buggy. I'm going straight up, no technology at all in 6 weeks. And we're going to do this. I say 3 days. I prefer 5, to be honest with you, but I'm a realist. Most of you can't do that. So 3 days is the target that we're setting. And then between now and then, we're going to set incremental changes each week, small little tweaks for 6 weeks. This time, let's not have the devices at the dinner table. We're going to start that this week. Let's not have devices in our rooms. Your children should never, under any circumstances, have an internet-connected device in their room, period. I'm going to say that again. Don't care how old they are. Your children should never have an internet-connected device in their room, period. I don't care if they're 4, 5, 15, 18, 26, if they're still living in your house. They should not have an internet-connected device in their room, period. If it's a girl, she cannot ignore the messages, the dings, the notifications. And if it's a boy, he's absolutely looking at porn. I'm glad we're recording this, because I just realized, as that came out of my mouth, that's going to land kind of hard. The filters you can put, the restrictions you can put are all good. They're valuable, and they're all able to be worked around. And your kid will all of a sudden become MacGyver crossed with David Zuckerberg. Wait, is that his name? Mark Zuckerberg. Why did I say David? Mark Zuckerberg. I was thinking David Hasselhoff. As weird as that sounds, I know that sounds odd to you. I was going to say Mark Zuckerberg, and then David Hasselhoff popped in my head. I have no idea why. David Zuckerberg is what came out. So your kid will all of a sudden become MacGyver, cracking a code and working around like he's like a Pentagon-level tech agent to get around your internet-protected device. All right. You got me. Next, gradually scale down as the weeks pass. And parents can't cheat. Parents can't cheat. Parents can't cheat. You're going to gradually scale down. When you get to the bottom, you're going to then enjoy your digital vacation. I'm going to keep telling you over and over again, don't cheat. Don't cheat your spouse by when the kids go to bed saying, okay, now we can get our devices out. No, there's a reason you feel like colleagues and don't feel like a spouse anymore. This is why. Because as soon as you get a minute alone, you both dive into your phones. Dive into your spouse. Dive into who your spouse is and what is going on in your spouse's life and how their dreams and ambitions have changed. It's in a high bar, right? How their dreams and ambitions have changed, how their personality has changed, how they're feeling about themselves as a wife, as a mother, as a husband, as a father, as an employee. Don't dive into your phones, dive into your spouse. That will save your marriage in a culture where marriages are dissipating. Okay, so don't cheat. Enjoy your digital vacation. And then when you come back, you want to have a totally different plan. Okay, so what does a different plan look like? 2 things. One, your digital plan needs to be more focused on environment than time. We have this weird obsession because it's easy. We have this weird obsession to say, let's only 10 minutes a day of this technology or only 20 minutes a day. There's room for that, but I'm actually weirdly way less concerned about that. These are the rules in our house. You will not be on a device in these settings, period. Okay? My wife and I talk a lot more now that she's not allowed to be on her phone when we're in the car. When we're in the living room, we talk a lot more now that I'm not allowed to answer work emails or respond to text messages. Okay, so here's a weird thing that we do in our house. If you're in the living room and you need to send a text message, we ask, and if you visited our home, we would ask you to do the same. We ask if you're in our living room and you need to get on your phone, no problem, we get it, but stand up and leave the room. Why? Because you mentally checked out anyway, you might as well do it physically. And as you do it physically, that indicates to us and to everybody else in the room, I'm not paying attention to you. Because if you're on your phone, you're not paying attention to me. I'd rather you not be in my presence so I don't mistake what's happening here. Okay, you know what else happens when you make that rule in your home? You send a lot less text messages. Because getting up constantly is a burden. And so you send a lot less text messages. So we don't send text messages. We don't get on our phones in the living room. And then in the bedroom, I've already mentioned the problem with kids and with spouses. You have other things to tend to in the bedroom than your Facebook account. I'm a marriage counselor. That does not make me uncomfortable. I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable. You have other things to tend to in the bedroom than your Facebook feeds. Those are your moments to connect. How many of them do you truly get in the course of the day? How many minutes do you really get to connect in the course of the day? A handful. You miss them, you don't get them back. Okay, let's keep moving. Let me see if I can do. Oh, by the way, this is all free stuff. There's a video on how to create a family tech plan. This is my website. There's a video on how to create a family tech plan, and it's free. Just download it. It'll show you how to use it and how to structure technology in your home in a better way. Again, I don't need user information, or you're not paying for it. All right, let's move forward. I pulled a passage from Ephesians for a reason. I'm just going to read the beginning of it. Let the thief no longer steal, but let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, that he may have something to share with anyone in need. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, only such as good for building others up as fits the occasion. Something about the Apostle Paul that is really powerful for us in the family therapy world. He never tells you to just stop doing something. He tells you to stop doing something and then start doing something else. Okay, so technology probably occupies way more of your family's life than it should. Great. So let's eliminate it. But let's not let that be the end goal. Because if we do that, you're going to be left with this big hole. You don't know how to fill it, and you're going to slip right back into the same problems. Okay, so we need to fill this with something better. So how do we replace these moments of technology in our home? These moments where we're being pulled away from our family. Here's how we do it. Number one, we create intentionally quiet moments in our home. I said just a second ago, how many days do you have, how many moments do you have over the course of your day that are truly quiet? Probably not many. Here's what I would recommend. When you come home, when you walk in the door, maybe you decide that for the next 20 minutes, as soon as dad comes home, as soon as mom comes home, everything's off. TV, phones, everything's off. They go in this thing called the kitchen safe, which I like. You can get on Amazon. It's a clear plastic container. You put all the devices in it. You set a timer. It vacuum locks, and then you can't open it. There's no key. There's no password. So if you have kids that mope and are martyrs anytime you take their phone, drop it in there, set the timer. And then when they go, I want my phone, you say, I can't get it even if I wanted to. It gets you off the hook if you have trouble sticking to your guns. They will still be martyrs, but at least then you can say, I deal with the kitchen safe. I don't know. I can't get it out. For the record, they can put your keys in it and set the timer for a week. Which happened after I did a presentation like this in Mineral Wells. I did this presentation at a school, and I was like, do this! They're like, yeah! And I came back the next week, or I'm sorry, the next year, they brought me back, and a mom was very sweet. But she was like, hey, they can put your keys in it. I set it for a week. That was fun. I said, what did you do? She goes, well, you were right. You definitely can't get it out. I said, what did you do? She said, a sledgehammer does work. So she got her car keys. All right. But we want to create intentionally quiet moments in our home. Folks, I'm going to show you two things that you can read. One passage from Genesis, one from Mark. Here's the idea behind the Sabbath. Why was the Sabbath given to us? The Sabbath was given to us because quiet is not our genetic predisposition. Quiet has to be made. It has to be intentional. God gave us a day to rest. You have to put quiet in your house. If you're waiting for your schedule to clear, which I hear that all the time. I work as a marriage counselor. I give couples, here's some really important conversations to go have at home. You know what I hear 95% of the time? Yeah, we didn't really have time. Okay, so all of the junk that you put on your schedule, you're telling your spouse that's more important than you. It's more important than my marriage. It's more important than connecting to you. All right, I'm telling you this because if you don't put quiet in your home, it won't get there, I promise. So how do we create quiet? Here's some ideas that popped into my head as I was putting this together. Designate time every day. Next, playtime. Intentionally making your kids go outside and play. We've talked about that. Play board games together. I have played more games of Guess Who than any human being should ever. And I can't get my young, just ask the gender first. He won't do it. He's always like, do they wear a hat? Like, come on, man. There's 4 of them who wear a hat. You know he doesn't have a hat on. You know what's funny? You know what I learned about him? I learned he's describing the one he's looking at. It changed the way I play that game with him when I figured out that's what he's doing. I was like, oh, you're talking about, got it. So I need to not ask if he has a hat, because he totally has a hat. All right. Next, I want you to read together. When I say read together, let me tell you what I mean. Read together. If they're young, I'm giving you a task. Ready? If your kids are young, under the age of 10, I want you out loud with them to read the Chronicles of Narnia. Specifically, the ones that have movies with them. There's only 3 of them. Read them. If you think like, oh, my kid's not going to sit for a novel, that's not good. Your kids should listen and engage in those situations. I know it sounds like a lot. We started that process. Me and my boys read through the entire Chronicles of Narnia when my oldest was 5. My youngest was 3, 2, going into 3. Now, he didn't really pay attention. But they both got into the sword fighting thing. Now, I will say this. If you're going to read the Chronicles of Narnia with your boys or with your kids, don't let the chapter where Aslan dies be right before bedtime. We had to power through bedtime. Like, we need to move to the next chapter. Super sad. Didn't realize it was going to devastate them the way that it did. Read books with your kids, and I don't just mean little small books. I mean deep books that they have to get into. We read Peter and the Starcatchers. We read 3 of those books. My boys are 9 and 6. We've read the Harry Potter books together, most of them. Read with your kids. If they're 16, you probably don't want to read out loud the Chronicles of Narnia together. Maybe you do, I don't know. But if they're that age, maybe each of you sit down and read something together in the same room together. That counts as reading together. All right, let's keep moving. I want you to talk to your family. That seems like a no-brainer, right? I'm going to ask a rhetorical question that you and your spouse can debate on the way home. What do you normally talk about? There's one answer. Logistics. Most of our conversation in a family is about who has to be where, when, money, what's coming up this weekend, that logistics. And then you'll come to a marriage counselor's office and wonder why you have a business-like relationship. Because you talk to each other like coworkers. All you ever talk about is schedules and money and your mom and how she made you mad, and your sister, and you can't believe what she's doing with her kids. I can't either. It's crazy. That's all you talk about. You talk about logistical stuff. The reason you were drawn to each other when you were dating is because you were curious about each other. Here's something you need to know. You're going to keep growing and evolving. Keep being curious about each other. Ask about changing in life perspective. Ask about different dreams and ambitions. Ask about their opinions on topics that you're interested in besides politics. Ask their opinion on things that you're interested in, that they're interested in. Explore your spouse. If you struggle with that, there's something you can get on Amazon called Table Talk. It's a deck of cards. We have one sitting on our kitchen table because I don't like being creative at dinner. And so we pull out cards, and they're just questions to explore as a family together. I've learned a lot about my family asking those types of questions. All right, last couple things. We need to coach emotions. Okay, I can't give you the entire clinical perspective because I'm already 3 minutes past when we were supposed to stop. But let me say this quickly. Here's how we coach emotions in our home. If you want your kids to be able to regulate their emotions, that's a good goal. But you can't teach that if you can't regulate yours. Which means if your anger, your anxiety is palpable, you can't tend to your children. I don't know which probably mom I'm talking to right now, but your anxiety has gotten a hold of you in a way that keeps you busy. You can't sit down. If you have 2 seconds of rest, you feel like you need to clean something, or plan something, or call somebody, or tend to something, because your anxiety is out of control. That anxiety was there way before your kids showed up, and you never tended to it. Probably came from a justifiable place. Probably came from your family of origin, maybe from experiences you had. But if you can't get that anxiety under control, your kids are going to feel it, you're going to project it onto them, and they're going to be anxiety-ridden as well. Okay? I'm telling you this not because I'm trying to hurt you. I'm telling you this because I want to help you. Do you have any idea how many parents, so moms, I was just hard on you with anxiety. Do you have any idea how many dads demand their children control their anger in ways that they personally won't? So my kids can't yell, but I can. I'm the dad. That's a dumb answer. If you want your kid to not yell, don't yell at him. If you want your kid to not blow up, you can't blow up at him. The idea that I'm the adult worked great when we didn't have a counter argument. But now we do. And the counter argument is, that doesn't work. We've tried it. We've tried monitoring it. It doesn't work. I'm lecturing you now. Let's keep moving. Coach emotions. The idea with this one is, I want to make sure you understand whatever you need to see in your kids. You want your kids to be well-adjusted. You want your kids to be anxiety, low anger, high happiness. You have to do those things too. You can't ask for your kids to be intentionally happy if you refuse to be. Okay? You need free play too, by the way. That's what I'm trying to say. And next, and finally, is be present. I need you to be physically present, mentally present, emotionally present. I talked about anxiety a minute ago. Most people with high anxiety have terrible memories. You know why? Because memories are created right now, in the here and now. They're not created in the past or the present. And anxiety is always rooted in either the past or the future. Okay? So because we live in anxiety, I don't make memories. I forget where I parked my car. I forget what I was supposed to do today. I forget basic things because my anxiety has me somewhere other than right here, right now. Okay, if you've never heard the word mindfulness, if you are struggling with what I just said, look that word up. It's a good one. All right, so we want to give you sekat peace, something that's more than just a lack of noise. We're going to do that by confronting the noise that's infiltrating our homes. We want to be intentionally quiet. We want to talk to our family about things more than just logistics. We want to coach emotions by displaying emotions. And we want to be present with the people we love the most. If you can do just a couple of these things, say quiet, it's possible. I'm going to close this out with a word of prayer, and then we're going to call it a day. Gracious Father, we come to you today, Lord, grateful for the opportunity that you give us to spend time together. Father, I pray this morning that we will leave this moment we're having together as better parents, as better husbands, better wives. Father, I pray this morning that whatever it is that needed to be dislodged in the lives and hearts of the people assembled will be dislodged. Father, I pray that you'll point us back to you. I pray today that you will send us out of this time together convicted that we want to be better at this amazing calling that you have given us. Father, I ask that you go with us, and that you allow this to not just be a good moment, but to be a family-altering moment where we remember that our purpose, our goal, is to center our families around you. Father, I ask these things through your Son.